It's spine-chilling true stories of haunting discoveries in cursed new homes exposed. Emily stood in the doorway of her new home, heart racing. Glancing around, the neat lines of the neighborhood seemed perfect, but an unsettling silence filled the air, like the calm before a storm. She felt a shiver run down her spine as she recalled the stories of families who vanished, only to leave haunted houses and broken dreams behind. Emily tried to shake it off. She was excited, fresh from high school, ready for a new start with her mother Laura, but something felt off. The fixer-upper was charming with its vintage features. Original hardwood floors, stained glass windows, but as the two began renovations, an unsettling tension lurked beneath the floorboards. While sorting through dusty boxes in the attic, Emily stumbled upon letters. Their crumpled pages revealed frantic pleas for help. Goosebumps prickled her skin as she read the child's frightened scrawls, showcasing fears of something hiding within the walls. "Mom, you've got to see this!" she called out, her voice tinged with panic. "Just a prank from the last tenants," Laura dismissed, yet the laughter in her voice was forced. The neighbors were odd too. They evaded eye contact, whispering as Emily and her mother passed. Something about their nervous gazes sent a chill down her spine, but she brushed it off. Maybe they just found them strange, the newcomers with their big dreams. As renovations progressed, chilling messages appeared, scrawled in dark ink on the walls. "Leave now," one read. Emily laughed it off, but her heart raced. "It's just kids messing around," she said, trying to hide the unease growing inside her. Yet that night, strange things began to happen. Flickering lights danced ominously, and an unexplainable noise echoed from the attic, low and haunting, like whispers carried by the wind. Each creak of the house was a warning, and Emily couldn't shake the sense of being watched. One night, alone and restless with her mother working late, curiosity gnawed at her. Armed only with a flashlight, she crept into the attic, the scent of dust thick in the air. A heavy silence enveloped her, every breath echoing in her ears. When moonlight finally illuminated the room, she froze. An old photograph sat before her, a family, smiling faces frozen in time. But the child looked eerily familiar, with eyes that seemed to peer deep into her soul. Fear gripped her heart. Sudden footsteps echoed behind her, their sounds stark and real against the suffocating silence. Panic surged, and she spun around, but found only shadows. The air turned cold, weighty, pressing down like a shroud. "Emily!" A whisper coiled around her, the name dripping with sorrow. She wanted to scream. The photographs and trinkets morphed into a sinister tale, one tied to a child reported missing years ago. Anxiety spiraled into paranoia. Should she call for help? But the authorities had turned a blind eye. Her instincts screamed for answers. She felt trapped in a web of dread, every corner of the house harboring secrets aching to be revealed. Just then, a loud knock broke the heavy stillness, shattering her thoughts. Heart pounding, she tiptoed toward the door. Shadows danced around her like phantoms. Who or what waited outside? Emily's hand trembled on the doorknob, each second stretching into eternity. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment lingered in the air, thick with dread. Emily could sense something dark beyond the door, a presence that twisted her stomach in knots. She hesitated, every instinct screaming to turn back, to flee, but curiosity clawed at her heart. What awaited her was unknown, a dark choice between safety and the truth lurking in her haunted home. Was it a chance encounter with someone who could help, or a confrontation with the very horror whispering through her walls? Mustering every ounce of courage, she opened the door, uncertain of what awaited her, and if she would ever truly escape the nightmare binding her to this eerie reality. Cold air flooded into the house, wrapping around Emily like a suffocating blanket. As she stood there, door ajar, a figure loomed just beyond the threshold. The porch light flickered, casting uncertain shadows across the yard. Emily squinted, heart hammering. There in front of her was a young boy, no older than 10, with sunken cheeks and eyes that looked like two empty voids. "Help," he whispered, voice barely audible, as though he hadn't spoken in ages. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Was this real? This wasn't just another prank or a figment of her imagination. The creepy stories flooding her mind clashed with reality. Who are you?" she stammered, gripping the doorframe for support. "Please don't let it get you too." His voice trembled, and he raised a bony finger as if to warn her. "I can't stay long." The boy's sudden expression twisted into one of fear, as if something lurked behind her. Emily couldn't shake the feeling of the house closing in around her. The darkness felt alive, creeping closer, wrapping tendrils around her mind. You need to go," she whispered, wishfully thinking the boy could hear her over the pounding of her heart. "You shouldn't be here. This house—" Suddenly, a loud crashing sound echoed from the attic above, shaking the floor beneath her feet. Emily's gaze snapped toward the dark stairs leading up. The child flinched, eyes wide with terror. "It's coming," he croaked, backing away slowly, fingers digging into the edge of the porch as if searching for something to hold on to. Panic surged through her, drowning rational thought. "Wait!" she called, stepping outside, drawn to the boy's frightened expression. "What do you mean? What's coming?" But he merely shook his head, glancing over her shoulder. "It won't let me talk," he urged, panic lacing his voice. "You have to get out now. I don't know how long I have." An icy chill brushed against her neck, and she turned back to see the darkness crawling from the corners of the house, pooling around her feet, a mass of shadowy fingers reaching toward her. "Emily!" her mother's voice called from inside, pulling her back to reality. The boy's expression turned desperate. "Please close the door. It sees you." Screams hardened in her throat as she stepped back, torn between two worlds. "No, I have to—" "Close it!" he screamed, his voice now tinged with anguish as the shadows surged forward, licking at the edges of her sanity. With an urgency she didn't know she had, Emily slammed the door shut, just as she heard whispers ripple through the cracks, a wretched cacophony of lost souls threading through the ancient wood. Fear squeezed tightly at her chest, then silence. Emily turned, her heart racing, but the boy was gone. The front porch, now empty and still, bore no trace of his presence. It was as if he had been a figment of her worst nightmares. Her mother entered, looking around. "What's going on? Who are you talking to?" "Mom, I don't know." Her voice wavered. "We need to leave. We can't stay here." Suddenly, the walls began to tremble, the entire house groaning like a creature awakening from a long, dark sleep. Something malevolent stirred within. "What have we done?" Emily cried, looking around in terror. Just then, the attic door burst open with a violent crash. A low, growling noise filled the air, something heavy thudding across the floor above them. Emily's breath quickened. What was up there? Whatever it was, it craved something, or someone. "You don't understand," her mother whispered, huddling closer. "This house, it wants us." The shadows swirled, wrapping around them like a dark shroud, a promise of what was to come. And far away, from somewhere deep within the bowels of the house, a child's laughter echoed, a haunting, sinister tune that heralded nothing but despair. Emily felt her blood run cold. As the house creaked around her, twisting into a living nightmare, she realized one truth. Escape was no longer an option. What would this place demand from them next? The shadows writhed around Emily and her mother, consuming the light and suffocating any hope of safety. Emily felt her breath quicken, panic surging with each heartbeat. "Mum, we have to find a way out!" Her voice trembled as she stared into the darkened corners of the room, where shapes began to tease the edges of her vision. Her mother, clutching her arm, glanced at the attic door, which swung ominously. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed above, each thud sending chills down their spines. "What if we go upstairs?" her mother suggested, though even she didn't sound convinced. "Maybe we can find something." "No!" Emily shouted, the instinct to protect surging forward. "We can't. It's up there. It's all from up there." She pointed up the stairway as a growl reverberated again, this time mixed with a voice, low and rasping. The cries of the shadows pressed against her mind, and Emily stumbled backward as echoes of laughter danced around them. It felt alive, the house vibrating with its own heartbeat, like it was feeding off their fear. "What if the boy was warning us?" she whispered in disbelief, blinking quickly to clear her mind. I don't know what to believe," her mother replied, uncertainty hanging in the air. The flickering lights cast brief glimpses of terror within the house, as if revealing things lurking just out of sight. "Maybe the basement?" Emily suggested, feeling desperate. "We could lock ourselves in, at least for a bit." "Emily, listen." Her mother hesitated, squeezing her arm tightly. "There's more to these walls than we know. This place hides secrets." With a sudden crash, the attic door slammed shut, cutting off the otherworldly growls. In that eerie moment, the atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, a guttural voice pierced the silence, whispering their names, low and sinister. It dripped with malice. "Emily? Isabella?" It twisted around them, thick and suffocating. Emily looked wide-eyed at her mother, who was visibly trembling, her face pale as the voice echoed. "Do you hear it?" "Yes!" Emily gasped. "What does it want?" Before they could answer, the house trembled again, and a heavy thud from above. Something very, very large had moved closer now. Emily's legs turned to ice as she pictured whatever essence lurked above them, hungry, aware. "Go! Now!" Emily yelled, grabbing her mother's hand and rushing towards the basement door. As they sprinted, the whispers grew louder, merging into chaos, fraying the edges of their sanity. "It sees you! It sees you!" Terror clawed at Emily's mind. What was the boy trying to tell her? Just as they reached the basement door, it flung open on its own as if the house was welcoming them in. "No! No!" Emily pulled her mother back. "We can't go down there." Just then the lights flickered wildly, revealing the edges of the basement. Cracked concrete and old shadows danced across the walls, twisting into grotesque forms. "You've come home," the voice roared, filling the space. Emily's heart thundered. There was no way to reason with a force that claimed her name. The laughter now morphed into a deep, rumbling laughter, mocking and haunting. Her mother struggled against Emily's grip, eyes darting toward the enticing dark. "We can't run from it! We have to face it!" "Face what?" Emily shouted, panic tight in her chest. "You think this is choice?" Suddenly the laughter morphed into piercing screams, a multitude of voices entwined. A dull darkness seeped from the basement, pulling at their legs, making the air thick and soulless. "Emily!" Her mother's face was now gripped with fear. "What do we do?" Just then, a shadow separated itself from the dark pile, emerging with form, something human, yet wrong. A face, too familiar, yet too distorted. Emily's breath caught. It was the boy from the porch, but his eyes glowed with an unnatural fire, his smile bone-chilling. "Join us before it's too late." In that instant everything fell silent, waiting for Emily's choice, the weight of the darkness potentially bearing down on them. Would she give in to the murky allure of the basement, or would she risk everything to uncover the truth behind the haunting? The boy's distorted smile twisted further, stretching into a grotesque grin that seemed to eat away at the darkness around him. Emily's heart raced. She could feel her body tense up, instinct screaming for her to run, yet something in that taunting gaze held her captive. A silent plea echoed between her and her mother. Were they really out of options? "Don't listen to him," her mother gasped, yanking Emily back as their eyes locked in panic. "It's not real, it can't be real." The voices swelled again like a storm closing in. "Join us, before it's too late." The phrase reverberated within the walls, leaving Emily dizzy as they resonated in her mind. Shadows stretched further, reaching toward her, as if the house itself craved a connection to the living. With a sudden jolt of adrenaline, she screamed, "We have to move, now!" Pulling her mother with her, Emily dashed past the boy. The shadows loomed larger as they plunged into the basement, darkness swallowing them whole. The musty air thickened around them. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing any hope of light. Emily slid to the ground, gasping as terror coursed through her veins. She squinted into the dimness, looking for a way out. Cold silence draped over them like a shroud, the only sound their heavy breathing. What do we do now?" Emily's voice trembled, sounding so small against the vast blackness. The shadows began to dart around them, whispering again, teasing her with giggles and cries that turned her stomach. "I don't know. We must find something to hold on to." Her mother stammered, her eyes darting. "Maybe there's a way out through the back, or a window." Emily rose, her legs shaky, taking cautious steps forward. The air felt like ice against her skin. She strained her eyes, trying to make out shapes in the darkness. A flicker of movement caught her attention. She turned sharply to where she thought she saw something, or someone. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice echoing. All at once, a figure stepped from the shadows. A woman, her face pale as if drained of all life, appeared. Her eyes were sunken and dark, glazed with a sorrowful emptiness. "Help us," the woman whispered, her voice weak yet urgent. Her fingers reached out, trembling toward Emily. "Mom, what is this?" Emily asked, her heart racing again. "Stay back!" her mother shouted instinctively, fear seeping into her tone. "You don't know her!" But Emily felt drawn to the woman. "Please, what happened?" she asked, warned by her mother but unable to break away from the connection. "Trapped. We were trapped just like you. Don't give in to the shadows. They collect. They feast on despair." Before Emily could process the chilling words, a low rumble shook the concrete beneath their feet, the walls pulsating like a gathering storm. "We can't trust her," her mother said more firmly, pulling Emily back in desperation. Suddenly, the basement flickered to life with a dim glow, illuminating the dark corners. Cobwebs tangled with dust looked alive, and the walls breathed with horrifying tales. Emily's gaze caught on something in front of them, a mirror, cracked and covered in grime. As she approached it, her pulse quickened, her reflection distorted, swirling with shadows. "Look!" she shouted, pointing at the reflection. The woman recoiled, shrieking in terror. "The truth is never what you expect!" Emily froze, the flickering glow revealing the fragmented images, twisted faces, betrayal, loss. She saw herself trapped in the shadows, reaching out for something, someone. The laughter morphed again, shrill, echoing their fears back at them. What had they walked into? The weight of despair pulled at her heart, panic threatening to swallow them whole. Just when she felt she might collapse under the pressure, Emily spotted a faint light breaking through the other side of the basement. "Mum, we have to get to that light!" Before she could move, the earth rumbled again, and the woman lunged at them, her screams joining the cacophony enveloping them. "You can't escape!" Desperation surged through Emily. They had to act. The shadows closed in, a black curtain suffocating their hope. It would be now or never. "Hold on!" Emily shouted, bolting for the light, dragging her mother along. The very walls seemed to tighten around them as they raced against time, against the tightening grasp of the darkness. Would they reach the light before it snuffed out entirely, or would they join the ranks of those lost within the shadows? Emily and her mother sprinted towards the light with every ounce of strength they had left. The air grew thicker, a suffocating curtain pressed against their chests. The whispers escalated, a haunting chorus calling them back, mocking the hope kindling between them. "Faster! Don't look back!" Emily urged, her voice breaking as the woman's cry echoed in her ears. With each step, the ground trembled, rattling their bones. Shadows warped around them, twisting and writhing like dark serpents trying to ensnare them in their clutches. "Mum, we're almost there!" Emily shouted, tears brimming in her eyes. The faint light flickered, teasing them with salvation. Yet the woman's scream rang in her mind, binding her heart in fear. "What if it's a trap?" "No time to think, just run!" her mother yelled, her grip tightening around Emily's wrist. Suddenly the basement lurched violently. Emily stumbled, the floor cracking beneath her feet. She strained to hold on to her balance, but was yanked back by her mother. "Emily!" her mother screamed, panic making her voice sharp. "Keep going!" Emily replied, shoving forward despite the crushing weight of dread that enveloped them. They surged toward the light, but the shadows stretched, like icy fingers trying to reclaim their territory. She could sense them behind, grasping at her heels, furious for the escape they threatened to take. With one mighty lunge, they reached the light, and as they crossed the threshold, a hard jolt sent them crashing onto filthy concrete. The dim glow enveloped them, illuminating a small alcove in the basement, filled with old, dusty boxes. It felt like a haven, but there was no time to rest. "What are you doing?" "We have to move," Emily's mother urged, scanning their new surroundings with wide, fearful eyes. Around them, the shadows hissed, flaring as they battered against the barrier of light. Emily gasped. This nook could be their only salvation, but it wouldn't last long. Desperate, she scrambled through the boxes, throwing aside shredded papers and broken trinkets. An undeniable sense of urgency energized her. "Maybe there's something here, a way out?" She rifled through the cluttered remnants of lives long gone, fragments of hope buried in despair. In the chaos, her hand brushed against something cold and metal, a rusted lantern. "Look!" Emily exclaimed. Her mother's eyes lit up. "We can use it if there's any oil left." Emily fumbled with the lantern, feeling along its surface, searching for a latch or any sign of a working mechanism. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the alcove. The woman from before burst through the darkness, her ghastly visage framing the already tense air with additional fear. "Don't believe her!" she shrieked, voice mingling with shrill laughter. "You will give in, just like the rest." Every instinct screamed to flee, but Emily was rooted, staring down the spectre that seemed to pulse with the very shadows around them. "Leave us alone!" she shouted back, defiance igniting in her chest. "Join us!" The woman lunged once more, and Emily felt the shadows snap at her heels. In that moment, something deep inside of her flickered to life, the warmth of the lantern she held thrumming against her palm, almost pulsating in rhythm with her heart. She had to believe. "Light this!" Emily urged her mother as she fumbled with the lantern. "We can fight them!" As her mother scrambled for the matches tucked in her pocket, the shadows writhed closer, hungry for despair, ready to pounce. Fear gripped Emily's throat, but she pushed through, focusing on the lantern burning brighter in her hand. Would they ignite the light in time? Or would they fall victim to the shadow's sinister grip, joining the woman in haunting the basement forever? The matches struck against the rough paper, and a flicker sprang alive, just as an ear-piercing wail burst forth from the dark corners of the room. Time stretched thin between the moment of potential salvation and the engulfing abyss. "Now! Light it!" Emily shouted, breathless. As her mother finally struck the flame, the darkened corners of the room howled in protest. Would the light hold back the tide of despair, or would it serve as a beacon to what lurked within? The answer was just an ignition away. The moment the flame danced to life, A harsh glow illuminated the alcove, swallowing the shadows whole in a fierce embrace. Emily felt the heat ripple through her, igniting a fierce sense of determination. The dark corners recoiled, whispering and hissing as they shrank back. "Keep it steady!" Emily shouted, holding the lantern high, its light cutting through the chilling blackness, leaving a narrow path where dread had lingered. Her mother clasped her hand, visibly trembling. "Can we push deeper? Find another way out?" "Maybe we can," Emily replied, searching the shadows, desperate for any sign of escape. Their voices were a heartbeat against the suffocating silence that followed the light's emergence. But the woman's eyes were burning embers of malice, and with every flickering inch the lantern illuminated. Her laughter echoed, sharp as glass. "You think light will save you?" she shrieked, her voice laced with madness. "You will never escape!" "No!" Emily shouted defiantly, shoving the lantern toward the spectre. Though her heart pounded a frantic rhythm, she clung to hope. The light was their weapon. The flame flickered, but Emily and her mother pressed onward through the alcove, keeping the lantern raised. The shadows loomed just outside the perimeter of light, snapping and clawing like wild dogs. "Look!" her mother yelled, pointing at a narrow door set in the far wall, hidden behind a tangle of dust-laden boxes. "We need to get there." "Go!" Emily urged, adrenaline surging. She picked up her pace, dragging her mother along as they darted toward the door. The shadows clawed at their heels, a chorus of howls rising in vengeance. Just as they reached the rusted knob, the shadows surged forward, a mass of darkness and despair. "You cannot leave!" the woman screamed, her laughter piercing through like shards of glass. Emily felt the cold breath of the shadows brush against her neck, sending chills racing down her spine. Fumbling with the latch, her fingers were slick with sweat. "It's stuck! Help me! Hold them back!" her mother shouted, aiming the lantern confidently. Emily felt the light waver as dread spiraled through her veins like a poison. She couldn't let it go out. She focused, channeling every ounce of belief into the flame, willing it to grow. The shadows recoiled momentarily, howling in anguish. But even within the newfound light, she could see the figure of the woman growing more furious, her features twisting and distorting, an apparition of anguish. "Stay close," Emily commanded, as her resolve firmed. If they were to face these horrors, it would take everything they had. With one final heave, she pulled the door open, revealing a dark passageway that shivered as if alive. "Where does it lead?" her mother gasped, glancing back at the seething shadows. "Don't know. We need to go," Emily urged. With no other choice, they dashed into the darkness, dragging the lantern behind them, a flickering beacon in a world strangled by despair. But as they hurried deeper, the walls began to pulse. Shadows whispered again, and in their depths faint cries emerged, chilling Emily's bones. What if it's a trap? Her own voice echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder as panic clawed at her throat. The passage narrowed, barely wide enough for the lantern. Suddenly, Emily stumbled, her foot catching on something hard. She barely caught herself, but the lantern swayed dangerously. "Mom!" she gasped, panic surging as darkness threatened to close in. In that flickering moment, an unsettling feeling crawled up her spine. She glanced back, half expecting to see the woman lunging once more. But all she saw was the echoing shadows reaching forward, a pulse of energy drawing closer. "Not again," she whispered. Just then, an inhuman screech pierced the air, its sound crawling through her mind like a nightmare. The shadows writhed, bulging and twisting, and for an instant Emily feared losing everything they had fought for. They had gone too far to turn back. What awaited them in the depths, the doorway to their salvation, or a descent into madness? "Hold the light!" she shouted, and with that they stepped further into the unknown, where hope and horror chimed together in an unholy symphony. What awaited them at the end of the passage? The air grew thick, pressing against Emily's chest like an unseen weight. Each inhalation felt heavy, laced with the scent of mildew and decay. The lantern swung precariously, casting erratic shadows that danced upon the walls, warping the warped faces of unknown terrors hidden in the dark. "No!" her mother gasped, pulling her back. "We need to be careful!" Emily's heart raced as the shadows twisted, growing thicker with every heartbeat, vibrating with a foreboding energy. "We can't stop now," she insisted, squinting into the deepening twilight of the tunnel, desperate to see a way forward. Just then the passage shifted. Walls pulsed as if breathing, and from those very walls came a sound, a low, growling whisper that coiled around them. "You'll never escape." Never. Panic surged. "We have to move," Emily shouted, pushing against her mother's hands as they clutched tightly to the lantern. The beam flickered once more, illuminating only the walls, which were now lined with strange symbols, hieroglyphs that twisted and writhed as if alive. "Look!" her mother pointed, breathless. "They're changing. What does it mean?" Emily hesitated, heart hammering. She felt the shadows retreating, but sensed an oppressive weight, an impending doom creeping closer. "Let's just keep going," she cried, forcing herself to take a step forward. "We can figure it out later." As they hurried deeper, the air became electric, charged with an unseen force. Emily could hear whispers echoing in half-formed words that sent chills racing down her spine. "Turn back!" they taunted. "Join us!" "Mum, hold the light higher," Emily urged, sweat beading against her brow. But her mother wasn't just trembling from fear. Her eyes widened, reflecting a primal terror that screamed of impending danger. "Emily!" she stammered, gripping the lantern tighter. "I don't know if—" Before she could finish, a heavy darkness surged toward them, writhing like a beast released from a cage. The inhuman screech returned, more intense, reverberating through the passage like thunder. Emily's stomach turned, and she felt her grip on reality begin to slip. "Run!" Emily screamed, her voice cutting through the chaos, spurring both of them into action. They raced forward, legs pumping, the light illuminating a flickering path of safety amidst choking despair. But as they pressed on, the energy around them felt suffocating, and the tunnel seemed endless. "Look!" Emily shouted, spotting a light ahead, faint but real, a glimmering hope. "This way!" But the shadows roared, resonating with the vengeance of 1,000 lost souls, rapidly closing in. Emily stumbled again, her feet barely managing to keep up, heart racing with anguish. The walls of the tunnel tightened, shifting as if aware of their desperation. Then it happened. A fierce gust shot through the passage, extinguishing the lantern's flame. Darkness swallowed them whole, a smothering blanket that clawed at their sanity. "Mom!" Emily's voice trembled, panic boiling over in her chest. She clawed in the dark, hearts beating like war drums. "Emily, I'm here," her mother whispered back, but the reassuring tone did nothing to ease the dread churning inside her. Suddenly, cold hands gripped Emily's arms, icy and unyielding. She gasped, heart faltering in her chest. "No!" A deep laugh resonated around them, filled with malice and glee, but just at the brink of despair, the lantern flickered to life. Moments hung in time as the dim glow revealed twisted faces in the shadows, staring, watching. They weren't alone anymore. "Run!" Emily shouted, adrenaline overriding her fear. Together they bolted forward into the newly illuminated path, but as they moved, the laughter grew louder, echoing as if the shadowy figures were tracking their every step. What lay ahead? An end to the nightmare, or an even darker fate? Their breaths quickened, and with each frantic step, they realized they didn't just run from shadows, they were being hunted. Would they find a way out before the darkness claimed them? In that moment of endless flight, uncertainty loomed like a heavy fog. What was waiting for them just beyond the turn? The flickering lantern, casting its ghostly light, trembled in Emily's grip. She could hear her mother's ragged breaths echoing in tandem with the darkness surrounding them, creating a cacophony of dread. Every push down the tunnel felt less like urgency and more like desperation. Each footfall was swallowed by the air thick with despair, consumed by the shadows that loomed behind them. "Keep running!" she urged, trying to drown out the deep rumbling laughter that echoed in twisted harmony. It slipped into her ears, curling around her thoughts, turning her resolve to mush. With every step, Emily's mind raced. Why were they here? What had drawn them into this suffocating labyrinth of despair? The hieroglyphs had felt alive, like a warning written in a language of anguish. "We'll find a way out. We have to," she whispered to herself, trying to believe. As they rounded a sharp corner, Emily stumbled, arms flailing as she fought to maintain her balance. The lantern swung wildly, illuminating a crude mural painted on the wall, a grotesque scene of twisted bodies and gaping mouths, faces frozen in eternal screams. Heavy shadows pooled in every crevice, as if the darkness itself were waiting for them to falter. "Please, Emily, we need to slow down. This can't go on much longer." Her mother gasped, but in that moment Emily could feel a shift in the air, a sudden chill that snaked down her spine. "No!" Emily's fear flared anew. "If we slow down, they'll catch us. I can feel them. They're right behind us." Holding the lantern high, they forged ahead, a fragile light against the suffocating dark. The walls echoed their every movement, a mocking reminder of their frantic heartbeats. Every step felt like a countdown, the growing whispers amplifying in volume. "Join us. Join us." Then the laughter erupted again, louder, more sinister, filling the air around them. Emily stopped, heart hammering in her chest. "Did you hear that?" Her mother nodded but didn't answer. The shadows thickened, pressing against the edges of their light like a vice. It was as though they were being enclosed, the narrow passage shifting to trap them. "Emily," her mother's voice quivered, "we have to find a door. Something..." Just then, directly in front of them, a door appeared where there had been none before. A dark wooden door, old and scarred, its handle covered in rust, the outline barely discernible in the dim light of the lantern. Is that real?" Emily wondered, hesitating. "Let's see," her mother urged, grasping the handle. The door creaked open, revealing a room engulfed in shadow. An overpowering sense of foreboding seeped through the threshold, but a strange light flickered within, beckoning. "Mum, wait!" Emily whispered fiercely, instinctively pulling her mother back. "Something's not right." But it was too late. Her mother stepped forward, crossing into the dark. The instant she did, the lantern flickered and died again, plunging Emily into an abyss of silence. "Mum!" she screamed, heart racing as panic clawed at her throat. The shadows swirled around her, pressing like living tendrils. "Emily!" Her mother's voice echoed weakly from the dark, fear lacing each syllable. "Help me, I can't see." "Mum!" The word escaped her lips, raw and frantic, as she flung herself toward the door. The weight of the shadows bore down on her, straining her lungs, blinding her with despair. Flailing to grasp the doorframe, she felt a throat-tightening sensation, as if the shadows were trying to drag her into the very place from which her mother's cries emanated. The cold spread through her, icy tendrils wrapping around her heart. She had to act, before the darkness claimed her too. Taking a shaky breath, she stepped through the threshold and into the unknown. What awaited her in the darkened room? Her heart raced, a pounding drumbeat in the silence that threatened to consume them both. Would she find her mother, or become another whisper among the shadows? Just as she felt a grip pulling her deeper into darkness, the ground beneath her felt oddly warm, alive, and she realized she wasn't alone. The truth was there, lurking in the corner of her mind. Was this the end of the line, or did the real nightmare await just beyond her reach? Emily stepped further into the dim room, the warmth beneath her feet sending an electric jolt of confusion up her spine. The shadows wavered around her like living memories, writhing and curling, just waiting for the right moment to overwhelm her completely. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoed behind her, the sound of the door slamming shut, sealing her in. "Mom!" she cried, her voice cracking in the stillness. The warmth beneath her felt almost unreal, pulsing gently like a heartbeat, but it only deepened her unease. Had she crossed a line into something she couldn't understand? "Emily." Her mother's voice filtered through the murk, thin and frail like a whisper of smoke. "I can't. It's dark. I'm scared." "Mom, where are you?" Panic twisted in her gut as she spun, trying to locate the faint flicker of her mother's presence. "Over here, The voice broke off suddenly. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily's heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out all other sounds. She fumbled in her pockets for the matchbox, hands shaking as she grasped a single match. With a deep breath, she struck it against the rough side, its light flaring to life, a dim bulb fighting the dark. The flickering light revealed a mass of twisted roots, sprawling from the earth, winding and tangling like some monstrous creature lying in wait. They pulsated with a sickly glow, the soil dark and rich around them. But it was the sight of her mother hunched against the wall, her face hidden in the shadows, that sent daggers of fear into Emily's heart. "Mom!" Emily's voice came out in a whisper, her grip tightening around the fragile match as she stepped closer. The shadows danced mockingly as the matchlight fought desperately against the consuming darkness. "Mom, please say something." Her mother lifted her head slowly, and Emily's breath hitched at what she saw. Eyes wide and glistening with fear, lips parted but no words came out. A low, twisted groan escaped her throat instead, filled with despair. Emily dropped to her knees, the weight of dread pressing down on her. "What's happening?" she cried, panic rising like bile. But all she got was a soft, choking sound, her mother's hands clawing at the earth as if trying to escape something unseen. Emily's heart twisted in anguish, knowing she had to act quickly. But then, flickering around the edges of her mother's form, she noticed movement, dark shapes flitting in and out of sight. They were closing in, inching closer with malicious intent. "Get away from her!" Emily shouted, lashing out with the light, its glow barely reaching the encroaching darkness. But it only seemed to amplify their presence, the shadows morphing into grotesque figures, mouths sprawling wider than humanly possible, all the while whispering, "Join us! Please, Emily, please!" her mother pleaded, her hands reaching out, desperate. That act of vulnerability steadied Emily's resolve. Mustering every ounce of bravery, she placed herself squarely between her mother and the advancing shadows. As if sensing her defiance, the figures halted for a moment, their whispers snaking through the air, wrapping around her like a suffocating fog. Emily felt the ground rumbling below, a tremor that echoed her own terror. "No, I won't let you have her!" she screamed, gripping the match tighter, its flame flickering dangerously low. The dark figures hesitated, swirling, as if considering this newfound resistance. Emily's heart raced, pounding in her chest as adrenaline surged. For all their horror, these were only shadows. She needed to expose them, unmask the fear that gripped her. From somewhere deep within, an idea sparked. She dropped to the ground and gathered handfuls of the warm earth, flinging it in every direction like it held the key to escape. And as the soil fell, it began to hiss, giving way to the light of the match which blazed back to life. In that moment, the shadows recoiled, shrieking with fury, their forms twisting grotesquely as if she had punctured a veil. But Emily needed to know. She had to find her mother and uncover what lay beneath the surface of this nightmare. But just as she turned, the ground trembled violently again, and the twisted roots surged with life. What force pulled her down? Would she find her mother, or was this just another trap woven from the fabric of fear? Emily felt the earth shift beneath her feet, pulsing like a wild heartbeat. The darkness surged, and the shadows writhed as if alive, threatening to swallow her whole. The very roots she had flung dirt at now twisted and coiled towards her, seeking to ensnare her in their grip. "Emily!" Her mother's voice sliced through the chaos, a thread woven into the web of darkness. She was still alive, but how could she reach her? "Mom!" Emily called, desperation washing over her. She turned back to face the shadows, feeling their weight as they loomed dangerously close, whispering promises of despair. Taking a deep breath, she gripped the match tightly, fully aware that it was their last lifeline. "I won't let you have her!" she shouted, channeling all her fear and anger into the flickering flame. Ignited by rage and love, Emily struck the match again, the light flaring up against the suffocating shadows. The darkness shrank back, gasping at the unexpected resistance. It was a gauntlet of terror, but she wouldn't let it consume her or her mother. "Mom, I'm coming!" she proclaimed, closing her eyes to focus. She could see the outlines of the shadows, their twisted forms shrinking back under the sudden blaze of hope. She dashed toward her mother, heart racing, feet pounding against the warm earth that pulsed beneath her. Then she shattered the silence. "Tell me what to do! We're getting out of here!" "Emily!" her mother rasped, finally forcing her eyes open. "You have to believe in the light. Don't let it go!" With unyielding determination, Emily blended fear with resolve. "We'll face this together. Just hold on." Carefully she stepped toward the shadowy figures with every ounce of courage she could muster. The light flickered and pulsed, and suddenly a path of glowing warmth opened up before her, a reality parted from the horrors around them. At that moment, the shadows erupted, howling in agony, darting to the edges where the light met darkness. Their whispers turned to screams, filled with rage. "You can't escape! Join us!" Yet the more she moved forward, the stronger her resolve grew, the belief in herself and her mother shining bright like a beacon. "This isn't your home anymore. You're nothing but echoes of the past." Emily lunged forward and grasped her mother's hand. The touch felt electric, a lifeline binding their spirits. "Let's go!" The passage groaned as the ground shook. The lantern's flame burned hotter, casting glorious light that purged the darkness around them. The shadows shrieked, clawing at every inch of their being, attempting to drag them down. The warm earth quaked beneath them, but they did not falter. With every step they marched further into the pathway of light that had forged their bond, a tether against the darkness. Emily felt her mother's grip tighten, their fears intertwining yet dissolving into bubbling hope. Bursts of light burst around them, illuminating the way. As they neared the threshold, the shadows screamed, clawing desperately but with fading strength. Then freedom! They burst through an archway, tumbling into a blinding light that consumed them whole. As they fell into the vivid daylight, everything shifted. The warm sun bathed them, washing away the cold fear that had clutched their hearts. Emily gasped, feeling the weight of despair drop away, leaving only the gentle embrace of reality. The world around them brightened, a beautiful morning filled with birdsong and the sweet scent of flowers. They were outside, away from the tangled shadows of the past. Are we free?" her mother breathed, looking around as disbelief washed over her. Emily nodded, tears of relief filling her eyes. "We did it." They embraced tightly, feeling each other's warmth, anchored in their newfound safety. As they released each other, a soft breeze fluttered through, a promise of new beginnings. The shadows might loom large, but they had faced their fears together and emerged whole. That day signaled the end of a nightmare, no longer haunted, no longer bound to that cursed home. They turned their backs on the shadowed past and ventured toward the dawn of their future. "Let's go home, Mom," Emily whispered, determination blooming within her. Together, they walked away from the remnants of the darkness, hearts entwined in a comforting rhythm of love. Don't let this conclusion slip away. You need to subscribe now for more exclusive stories that send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you this content. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the thrill. Your support is everything. Let's keep this adventure going together.